everyone. Welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the best version of yourself. So many things that encompasses. Growth is what we have found to not be a very linear journey. There's so many factors that contribute, like so many variables that it can be so hard to figure out what things in your life you need to change to make it better. And as you get new information, you're always trying to make adjustments, but it can be difficult. And sometimes we also kind of have blinders on. We can't necessarily see our faults, and that makes it a lot harder. But today I'm so excited, as I always am, for another episode. How are you feeling this morning? Well, it's not even really morning anymore.
It's just a little past the afternoon now, I believe. But
it's tired.
It's the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so when post it will be the week of Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving too. We'll be seeing that on that Monday. But I'm doing good, I don't know what about you, but I feel kind of off towards the end of the year.
I think it's just like, I feel like there's a type of like burnout towards the holidays because like you're excited for me,
who's not excited for the holidays,
I work full time, and so like next week everyone's excited because we have Thursday, Friday, and then obviously Saturday, Sunday off too. And for me, it's also very different because I used to work in retail, and that wasn't a thing. I always worked like excessively during the holiday season, so it feels good now to have a job where I don't have to do that. But yeah, I'm excited for today's episode. Like I said, like I always am. And I feel like I have a lot of thoughts on today's theme. So I kind of want to talk about the concept of oversharing. And I think when we talk about this, there's so many different things to consider, like social media. And I think also it has to do with like mental health and just the internet in general. So I think that this conversation will kind of feel like it's going down rabbit holes, but I feel like it all kind of relates.
Okay.
Get what
all
I
right.
mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
Yeah. So I do want to open up with the reason that I thought of this topic was because I saw a TikTok, as I always do. I saw a TikTok this week, and it was this actress. I don't know what show she's from, but I know she's an actress. And she said, if you're sad and you're crying and you post a video or TikTok or Instagram post that you're crying, you're not actually sad. And I could not disagree more with this post, because when Cesar knows, Cesar has gotten texts or snaps of me just bawling, and I can relate to the people that run to social media to post their feelings, because for some people it's an outlet. And so I looked at the comments on that post to see if people agree or if they're kind of thinking what I was thinking. And a lot of them were thinking what I was thinking is some people run to the internet, but social media to share these feelings because they truly feel like they don't have anyone else to share it with, and they can get better reach to someone who might be able to say something or even just relate to that. What do you think about? What are your thoughts on sharing your life on social media, or sharing more intimate parts, like you bawling online?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are plenty of. I mean, I think this is a rabbit hole, like you said.
Yeah.
But no, I think that there is, like you said, there is people that do use the internet as in general as an outlet to cope with life. Yeah, whether it's their, what they're feeling. It can be a good or bad thing, depending on what it is you're using it for, obviously. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. But in the sense of someone posting a video of themselves crying or airing out their feelings about something, and or whatnot, they have the ability to do that. And we live in a society where, again, like you yourself said, that there are other people, because of how the algorithm works, will show that to, especially on TikTok, will show that to other people who will relate to it. So I said, I mentioned this before in a podcast before, how you're always on sad girl TikTok. Yeah. Sad girl TikTok is just
it's my home, man.
It's a very interesting
place to
of
be.
TikTok. If you haven't, you probably see people. Maybe that girl, that lady, probably saw a bunch of. Maybe she saw it on TikTok or something. I don't
The
know,
thing
but
is, I'm gonna make an assumption right now. I know what assumptions do. They make an ass out of you and me. But I would assume that this celebrity was maybe referencing like other influencers or creators that do this. I still don't think it's right for her to like make that judgment like, oh, you're not actually sad. I think that I remember being in like middle school and high school, and that's when like Facebook was really big, was in like middle school
yeah,
and high school. That was kind of like the first very like social media platform before like
MySpace.
MySpace
Yeah,
obviously, but Facebook kind of was like a new version of that. And you could connect with a lot of people, and whenever you would post something like I'm sad or like post something like upsetting, there was this question, whether it be from your friends or people who saw like you just want attention, like she just wants attention, that's why she posted that. And back then I probably would have agreed with that, but knowing how I feel now, I think a lot of times those you just want attention are actually people like just want help. They're
yeah,
just crying for help.
yeah.
And yet we as people think like, so online's not a place to do it. It's like, but where is the place to do it if they don't have that safe space, if they don't have anyone they feel like they can talk to about it?
Yeah, I mean that's why they go on to the internet and either put it on a public forum, whether it's Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, whatever the case is, or before. I mean, I had mentioned this to you when you pitched me this topic, was that before the internet was a thing back in the '90s, I think people would probably talk to their neighbor more about these things, or maybe their relative or
But
whatnot,
even if you
and
think about it like that, there's always going to be those people who don't have those people.
or
You
that
know
they
what I
don't, yeah,
mean?
or
Like
that they don't
they
bring it
don't
up.
talk
Yeah.
to the neighbors. They don't feel like they have people that they can talk to about it. And I think when we think about one of I feel like the good things about social media is that people oversharing on the internet has also become a way for others to connect and relate to you. You know, like there's people who like kind of class themselves so like, oh, I just overshare on the internet. And I think there's kind of a beauty in just being like, some people might argue that it's not authentic, but being like authentic and showing that like, yeah, sometimes my life sucks or sometimes my life isn't as glamorous as it seems.
Yeah, like sharing your ups and downs, like it
Yeah,
isn't
sharing
a,
like everything and
yeah,
not just what like, people used to say, or they probably still say, a lot of social media is a highlight reel. It's not what's actually going on in real life. It's a very curated experience. You only let people into a certain part of your life when you share on social media. And while I think obviously that's like good, like, maybe there's not some things, not everyone has to share everything about their lives on there. I think it's also what makes it seem like when people share things other than like the happy times that they shouldn't do it. Like, and I also think it comes from the fact that probably I think you and I both, and probably a lot of people who listen to this podcast, grew up with parents that didn't necessarily like think you should share your emotions.
in general.
In
Just in
general,
general,
it was
yeah.
like you suck it up, you keep going, this is life, this is what you do. And it created this unhealthy kind of habit that we have to like not get these feelings out, and they kind of eat us up inside. And like, or like, yeah, it's just we grew up thinking that you don't share those emotions even in just certain spaces. Like you don't share in the work environment. Don't appear to be weak, don't appear to be vulnerable, because that's going to make you look bad. And then you also have to think about it like, I'm an emotional person, and I'm not going to lie, I've cried in front of my manager at my current job more times than I would have liked, because what goes through my mind, and I know this is not a reflection of the workplace that made me feel this way, but also just kind of thoughts I have in mind, is like, I'm a woman in the workplace, and did me crying in front of my manager make me appear less worthy or less capable, you know? And those are thoughts like as a woman I have. And I don't think that it did. Like at the end of the day, I'm comfortable with the place that I work, and I don't think it makes me seem, I'm human. But at the same time, there is always that thought in my mind, like, if I appear any way other than capable and strong and just hardworking, how is that going to make me look?
For some, I would probably say for most people, no, I can't talk about most people, but I can talk at least for my own opinion on this, is that it would probably make me feel like, oh man, I shouldn't act that way, because then I would, I'm portraying this person that looks, like you said, that looks weak, or that looks like they don't know what they're doing, or whatever the case is.
Or like gets too overwhelmed too easily. And like, I think that's such a shitty way to think about it, because when you think about it, all of us, we're humans. We have our own insecurities. We're fighting our own battles. We have so many things going on that no one knows about. And the thought that we could be okay 100% of the time is ridiculous. But also the thought that we shouldn't be able to talk about the fact that we're not okay is also ridiculous. Like, I used to make a joke about when I worked in retail, whether it be like I worked at a grocery store when I was in high school, but I also worked retail up until very recently. And when you ask someone how they are, you're just expecting, oh, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm
Today's good. You're never expecting a real answer. Like, most people aren't asking with the intention, like, I actually want to know how you are. It's just like this shallow, I have to ask you how you're doing.
Well, it's funny that you
today.
say that, though, because I don't know if it was when I worked at my retail job, like, quote unquote, that you don't consider retail, or when I used to work at a financial institution.
A financial institution.
Yeah.
Why did you say a bank?
I don't know. That came to mind. But anyways, I remember, I think it was the thing, they always tell you should always let people know like how they're doing, or whatever the case is. And I think one person like said, like, do you really want to know? Do you really? And they got mad, and I'm like, I didn't say anything, obviously, but it was just like, damn, no, that was real, because they were like pissed that I even asked. Like, they apparently were having a really bad day, and me just saying that triggered them. So, yeah, like sometimes people don't want to, portray or say like how they're really feeling, because they don't want society or the community or those people that don't want to.
That's not what they're really asking. They're just
Or that too,
what they're
obviously,
looking
but,
for.
yeah.
You know that they're looking for like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm good, or not too bad, or can't complain.
Hey, good morning, how's it going? Type
Like
of
when
thing.
I worked, no, I didn't work. Actually, I was I think I was in an AutoZone, and the guy in front of us, I remember being there with my mom, was checking out, and the cashier asked him like, how you doing? And he's like, I'm doing pretty shitty, actually. And like, just like not laid into
Wait,
this
the
woman
person that
was checking out.
Oh,
Not the
okay. Not
cashier.
the cat. Oh, I was
Not
going
the
to say, I was like, the person that worked there said
No,
that?
no, no,
Okay.
the guy that she was checking
All
out,
right.
and like he was just like, not. I'm like, he said like something like shitty, and like just kind of laid all his problems on it. And I'm like, I thought about it. I was like, what would you do in that case scenario? Because like you're never expecting the answer like to be anything other than like
Yeah.
the typical responses that you get on the day to day. So what do you do when you get a different response? And like I think about it too, because I saw a TikTok.
Again, a TikTok.
I saw another TikTok, but it was about like weekly one-on-ones with your manager. And I have weekly one-on-ones with my manager, and we typically have kind of like the same format of like how's it going, and like I update him on like projects I'm working on and like what he should be concerned about, like that's relating to like the work that I'm doing, any like concerns I have. But every week he asks me how I'm doing, and like work-wise I'm usually good, so I'm not gonna like say anything. But I'm also like thinking, I was like, man, I wish I would say like, well, like personally I'm just really struggling. But it also like, and I feel like I do have that kind of relationship with my manager, but there's always those like thoughts in your head, like maybe I shouldn't share that, like I'm feeling so down about my life, or maybe I shouldn't share this. And I think obviously us doing this podcast about all of this is very contradicting, because like I'm sharing that, yeah, I'm not doing so well. So like if my manager hears this, he's gonna know anyway. Yeah, it's like I feel like there's just this spectrum of oversharing, like it being a good thing and it being a bad thing. And I don't think people I don't know, people see it as.
I don't think oversharing is necessarily like evil or bad. You know, just that's just my like hot take on that. Like I think and everyone has the ability to overshare online, you know, or go outside, grab a megaphone, and just start like yelling at the top of their lungs how they're feeling. I mean, that would be kind of not to say it's crazy to do that. I mean, people grab megaphones and speak their mind all the time. So that's just like more practical, in real life sense, right? That the internet's kind of like a megaphone, especially TikTok. Like it magnifies all of those little things, and it reaches certain communities, and then you end up creating a certain niche of people that gravitate towards that. Which is why I don't think it is. It is. Which is why I don't think it isn't a bad thing necessarily, because there's useful information that has been brought about through oversharing, especially like in the educational space, because someone like talked about how they did some experiment or learned something. So like there's that whole oversharing part too as well.
But even so, like
this podcast is also oversharing.
We're just oversharing.
There you go.
But no, even so, like there's like TikTok accounts. For instance, this girl that runs this TikTok account called like about like salary transparency, and she goes around town like cities, and like she'll be like, what do you do, what's your salary, and like being transparent about how much people are making. And that's a way to like what people see as like oversharing as well. And I think
because before, like, you would never, and that was the thing I remember hearing.
You just didn't talk about it.
No, I remember there was like a rule of, not a rule of thumb. You never ask someone how much they make. Remember?
There's a rule of thumb because it's seen as like impolite. It's the same reason you don't ask someone how old they are. Like, how old are you? Like, that's rude, and I never understood why.
You never ask a woman her age, or like there was a bunch of like I remember.
I never understood that though. Like I feel because it's like, for instance, I work with people. Like I work with a lot of team members, and like it's hard for me to conceptualize how much older some of them are than me because I genuinely don't know their ages. And sometimes I just, when I'm in a group, it's like I assume assume that like we're all around the same age just because I don't really know. And then I'm like feel bad if I'm like, hey, by the way, like how old are you? Because I've been told that you shouldn't ask anyone that.
I mean, if I recall, it's hard for me to remember. It comes more from like to show like a sign of respect, that because if someone's a certain age, like ageism, like, Michael Scott.
Well, you can't ask it in an interview, but like...
Yeah, no, but I mean, like... It's just more of like, I don't know, I think of it more like, I personally would,
But also, if you're interview, you probably have their birthday, so you can calculate.
Oh, duh, but I mean, if I've just met someone, like let's say at some kind of, I don't know, conference, or the first question that I would ask someone is, hey, how old are you? Like, that's not my first question. My first question is, what's your name? Like, how are you? What are you doing?
Question: when's your birthday?
Yeah, it's more of like I don't know if it has to do something about maybe like keeping people like not thinking they're young, but it's more of a sign of respect. The same way I've never asked a woman her age. I've always been told like, oh, I graduated this year, and then you can kind of like roughly guesstimate.
Then you're like just stalking to figure out their age. Like, how old is this person?
No, obviously with someone you're gonna like, you're courting or meeting or you're dating or whatever it is, like you're going to end up finding that information.
That is, we had a conversation about this because when I met Cesar, I had no idea how old he was, and this man has a young face. So I also was like, well, he looks young, but I knew that he was older than me. And I don't think I really ever asked Cesar how old he is, because Cesar is about 5 years older than I am. I'm 24, about to turn 25 in January, and you're 29. And when I met Cesar, I was 19, about to turn 20, and you were 23 or 24?
22.
No, you weren't 22 when I met you. You were definitely either 23 or 24.
Damn, it was such a long time ago.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that because you looked so young. And I don't even know. I think I found out when I asked like your birthday or something. But I also knew because we might have gone to dinner or sometime and like you were drinking. And I was like, it's over 21. Or just a fake idea. Which is also hard. So like, I don't know. It was such a weird thing because I didn't like know like how to ask. I mean, we've gone down this rabbit hole. but yeah, you're taught to like not ask about like how much someone makes. And
Yeah.
obviously I still think there's a rule of thumb of like, if you just meet someone, yeah, how much do you make yearly is a weird question. But like if you build a relationship with someone, like I feel like that's something that you can openly talk about.
Yeah, sooner or later it'll come up in
But I
conversation.
think that like with social media, there's a power in just putting it all out there. And I think there's a way to do it too. Like,
yeah.
something I thought of when I was kind of planning out this podcast and thinking about this topic a lot was that when I was in my darkest like spaces, I truly like didn't know where to go. And I didn't post on TikTok, I didn't post on Instagram, but I posted on Snapchat. And the reason I posted on Snapchat was because I knew a lot of people didn't use it. I posted this video of like me crying, like just bawling, and I was just really upset and I didn't know where to turn to. And I thought like no one I really like talked to would see it. And a lot of people I knew did see it and like they reached out to me, and it was nice because I was like, I hadn't talked to these people in years, but like it did make me feel like I was less alone. And like,
Because obviously I was there, by the way, next to her.
you were
Yeah, it's
there.
like she was like physically alone. Like I was with you at the time.
I just felt like I didn't know where to turn to, and I haven't done that since, but I thought about like at my lowest points, like that was a cry for help, and some people think it's like attention seeking. It's like, no, I needed help. I needed an outlet. I needed somewhere to turn to because I felt like I had nothing. And I think with social media, a lot of people feel that way. And I think even with like, I can't speak on behalf of like influencers, creators, but I want to believe that when I see those posts from like bigger creators that, they're human and they're going through a hard time, and they want you to know that like, it's not realistic for us to fantasize that their life is always sunshine and rainbows. It's not. Like, we all go through these things that just push us to our breaking points. And at the end of the day, like I said, we're human. We can only withstand so much before things kind of overwhelm us. And yeah, I mean, I think the whole concept of oversharing on the internet is why some of like the biggest creators are successful.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it started even before like TikTok. It started with YouTube,
Oh, no, that's literally what I was gonna say. Is that TikTok's just a more like viral, recent form of oversharing,
like short form video, yeah.
But because it goes around so quickly. But yeah, YouTube was and still is still like one of the biggest places where people go and overshare and have become successful and being like a personality, a character, or just being themselves and being authentic because of like their oversharing. Like some of the biggest creators came from that platform and actually genuinely helped other people too. Though I know that there are some of them that like gave the money they made to charity or to these like mental health institutions or foundations or whatever the case is because of what they did. So that's what I'm saying is necessarily like I don't think oversharing is necessarily evil. People can find a community that they can relate to in hopes of truly seeking out like something that can help them. At the end of the day, like you doing that on Snapchat, again, I was next to her when this was going on. I was right next to her, like holding her, and she was just like it was a very sad time. And like she had people reach back out. People were like, this isn't the Sunny that I know. Like it was a way for you to find that little community that you had on Snapchat at the time,
It wasn't even that. I just think like I got asked too, like why I did that, like why I posted that, and I was just like,
oh, someone asked you?
Yeah.
Oh, oh no, okay.
It was like one of my best friends because I think she was just like really like,
Well, again, like
people will always wonder your intentions. Like, and
Yeah.
I think when you post that kind of stuff, people are gonna wonder your intentions and what were you looking to gain from that. What were you looking for to happen? And,
I mean, I don't think you were looking to gain
I don't
anything.
think I was
You
looking to
weren't.
gain anything. I just really didn't know what to do.
But don't get me wrong, there are people that do. That's why, like, not to say it's like the large. Again, I don't know what the breakdown of the numbers
It's
are,
about
but
the intention.
it's about the
behind it.
intention
And
at the
like
end of the day.
sometimes you just
Yeah.
really don't know. Like there are so many times that you see a video and like it blows up, and then the creator's like, "Dude, I did not freaking expect this. Like I just was sharing X, Y, Z with you." And I do think like when we talk about this conversation of oversharing, there's also this thing that gets brought up about mental health. And I love that mental health is a topic of conversation because I think it needs to continue to be. But I also hate the way that we talk about it sometimes. And like the way that like it's become this thing of like, I think there's like two facets, if that's the right word. There's how we talk about it in the workplace, like, oh, take care of yourself, don't get burned out, mental health days. But like mental health is so much more than like take a mental health day, you know? Like when I'm in like a really dark spot, I need more than a day. I like need like a month to recover. And unfortunately we can't do that. Like I mean, I'm not in a place where I can take that time to really just disconnect from everything. You know, I have responsibilities, and I think, you know, it's great, like it's especially like on TikTok, that we talk about mental health, and that it's you know, it's important. It's an important topic of conversation because I feel more of like us are struggling, like the younger generations are struggling because we're more connected with our emotions than previous generations, and we're willing to talk about those things, but we also, there's the other part of like not just talking about it but also fixing, like how do I, like, okay, I recognize that I feel this way, how do I fix it? And obviously like there's therapy and stuff like that, but I don't really know where I'm going with this, but like I think on TikTok we talk about mental health a lot, and I love the people that do, and I love the people that share what they know or like what their therapists have shared with them. But I think we also have to think about too, like what we put out there, because someone who is struggling might take something they see online and, do you know where I'm going with that?
So they might take something they see online
And like,
and use it,
or like not like
or
they'll see something online and like they'll take it for what it is, or like
for face value.
for face value, and it's not always face value, you know? And like there's
Yeah, no, I know what you're
like,
talking
you know,
about.
like because there's so much
Yeah.
people who like to speak on it and maybe deal with it personally, so they do have some kind of like grounds to be like, you know, talking about it. But I think we also have to,
I mean, everyone's situation is different, which is
Yeah.
why, like, I understand that, you know, if someone's going to therapy and they're talking about their experience, that's their experience, and like the tips that they might offer may help a few people. But I do get what you mean, is that maybe are you trying to say that it could be bad if someone takes it at face value?
I'm not saying it's bad if they take it at face value, but it's like discouraging, you know, like,
Ah, okay.
you know, you think something's gonna work for you and it doesn't.
And it doesn't, yeah.
And I don't think that's bad. Like, I think people should share all the things that they can about like their journeys and what's helped them, because it can truly help someone else. I just think we also got to be careful in the way we share information, but also the way we shape what mental health is. You know, a lot of people I've seen have also shaped it as like, I changed my life by waking up early, by doing this, by XYZ. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I love to see it. Like, I do love to see it. But at the same time, I'm thinking in my mind, how do I make this change? How do I get up early when I'm so fucking tired? When all I can think about is sleep. When all I want to do is sleep. When I have no motivation. I was like, changing that mindset isn't just like, you know, it is building habits, but there's also so much more to it that we're leaving out parts of the puzzle. Like, I talked to, I think it might have been in last week's podcast, or maybe just a personal conversation that we had, where this girl was, it's another TikTok, damn it, I need to get off TikTok. But this girl was talking about how the creators are talking about like marketing hacks, like sometimes leave out major pieces of the puzzle because like, yeah, I did this to grow X audience, but they leave out everything that it actually took. And like, they're just hitting highlights and they're not focusing on all of that all of what it entails, and that can be so misleading. I think we do the same thing sometimes when we have these conversations of like mental health and getting better and healing our minds and our hearts. We leave out core pieces of the puzzle, and some of those core pieces are like the uglier pieces, the things that aren't going to be easy, and the things that are really going to struggle. Like when we talk about healing from like trauma, for instance, there's going to be a period where you don't feel like you're moving forward, that you feel so low that you can't move forward, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't see how you're gonna like come from that, and everyone's just talking about like usually the end product, or like not the how sometimes.
You mean like the journey that someone took?
Yeah, the journey.
Well, it
not
isn't
even
like a straight line. It's like,
well, like they'll highlight the journey, like I did X by the month 1, month 2, month 3, but they're not talking about like all the things in between. And I understand it can be hard to really encompass everything that something is in like a 60-second video, but I think we need to like be more honest. I think we need to be like upfront, because there's a lot of things that we just don't talk about because it will, honestly, I don't know why we don't talk about them, because the people just choose not to. And I think that can be misleading for some people who might be on that same journey and like, I'm stuck, what do I do? They didn't tell me about this part. Like, they didn't tell me that I would feel this low. They didn't tell me that it would be this hard. And I think that can be disheartening. It's not like a game, it's not like a deal breaker, but it is like, if we can prepare someone for exactly what they should expect, we should do so. And we should do so knowing that, like, to prepare them fully. Because I know when there's a song that I listen to very often, and it's by Tate McRae, and it's called Chaotic. And she goes, "You said it looks like I've been going through hell. How did you know? How could you tell? Ask me to explain myself. Well, I'm trying my best here to be brutally honest. Nobody said changing would be this exhausting. It's like a foot on the brake because it's making me car sick. How could you blame me? Growing up is chaotic." And I think about that, and it's like, no one really does prepare you like for change in your life, or like, growing, when you're growing. And we talk about growth on this podcast as the core part of this podcast. No one prepared me for what like this would look like, and how painful it was. And I mean, you just feel better if you knew what you were up against,
Yeah,
it's like when we talk with Stephanie about the Dunning-Kruger effect of like, when you're learning something new, like there's periods you go through, and if you look at it, if you start with that mindset of, I know that I'm gonna hit a slump, when you approach that slump, you're not surprised, and you can maybe work through it.
Oh yeah, no, that's actually, it's funny. I was literally about to, not to say the Dunning-Kruger effect, but yeah, no, there is it would be nice to know, like, in the, if you knew something, you were going up against like an uphill battle, I guess you could say that, like a slump.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still have to go through it and deal with whatever issues at large. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone to give up on life, that's probably one of the things that I would probably advocate for the most, is that everyone has a different story, everyone has a different upbringing, everyone has been put in different situations in their life. Not everyone has the same background.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the most important things, is to understand that, just not to give up. As long as you don't give up, I feel like that's probably, I'm more on the hopeful side of things. I don't like saying
no, you should never tell someone, yeah, just give up. Like,
absolutely
no one should be saying that. That should not be.
There's people that say that. That's the other part of oversharing that we don't talk about.
But that should be something that's not said, because like, yeah, that could be taken way bad. But
all the time. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's bad. It's awful.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't tell someone to give up at all, I know that, but also saying like the you and I joke when I'm like sad, and you're like you don't ever say like, just don't be sad, but you'll say things. I'm like, oh my God, I'm cured. Like,
oh yeah,
thanks,
you say
Cesar.
that, yeah.
Like, I'm cured now. And it's like, when people tell you, don't give up. Like, my mom told me yesterday, she's gonna listen to this podcast, be like, Sunny Lynn. But I was on the phone with my mom yesterday, and I was in tears, as I always am, because I am sad girl. It's sad girl fall or winter or something, because it's just something in the air. Um, but I was telling her I'm just struggling and I'm having a hard time, and I was like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being tired. I'm so tired of dealing with this. And she was like, Sunny, like it'll get better. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, that doesn't do anything for me right now. I was like, it doesn't make me feel better because it doesn't feel like it's gonna get better. And she was like, you don't think I've been through the same thing? And I was like, what does that do for me now? I was like, sure, you've been through the same thing, but I'm struggling now and I want to get out of it now. And, I'm just like crying and I'm like, I can't do this. She's like, Sunny, we're stronger than we think we are. And in my head, I'm just thinking, I don't want to be strong. I won't be strong anymore. I just want to make it through. And like, there's this, like, when you hear those things sometimes, it's supposed to be motivational and it's supposed to be like, give you the like more positive outlook. And I love a positive outlook because I really do want to be positive. But when someone tells you that, you're just like, I'm so tired of being strong. I'm so tired of persevering. Like, I always tell you, I wish I could like give you my brain and like the thoughts, because it's like I'm constantly battling them. It's like bad feelings, sadness, bad feelings again, sadness, stop. Like it's everywhere. It's like one in my brain. I'm like, how do I stop it? And it's hard. Like it's really hard to like just. Someone once told me, and it's just like feel like the worst piece of advice I ever got was just like, you just gotta find that one thought and you stop it, and then all of them will stop. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. It was like when you're dealing with, especially like, I deal with like depression and anxiety, and when you're dealing with that, there's a lot of time there's no using logic. It's like the logic doesn't work sometimes. Like when you're trying to be like, okay, I can identify what made me upset, but I can't stop myself from being upset with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, it all really depends. Everyone's different. You're different, so which is why, like, I always highly recommend talking to someone who is professional. Not your like. If you do seriously have anyone listening, if you do seriously have like issues that you feel like you've tried everything, that is when you need to talk to someone that can truly help you. And yeah, because it's not. There isn't a simple one answer to, read this passage or read this book or drink this, or like that's really, for some it might help, not saying that, not discounting those things, because again, I've talked about it before, and those things have definitely continued to help people, but there's other options for everyone, and that's where you need to actually like talk to someone who,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I think is interesting though?
What's
When
that?
it comes to oversharing on the internet, I would say I don't ever see really males oversharing on the internet.
What do you mean?
Like in the way that women do.
Well,
Like if you think about the creators you watch people who I wouldn't say are necessarily sharing,
there's a
they're
ton.
just like providing information. You're not looking and they're not sharing their lives. They're not like vlogging, it's more like a production, the stuff that you watch.
Yeah, no, well, I was gonna say that, I mean, there are people that do, in a sense, that are males that do quote unquote overshare, but it's not in the same aspect of that niche that you're in, where it's like women or other people.
But what are you considering oversharing? Because I think we have two different
Well, I mean, like talking about, I definitely think for men it's completely different. Like usually it'll be like a strong male figure who's like, in a sense, not like motivating you to do better or be better or whatever it is, but more of like
do better, be better.
No, like, well, there's that too, right? There's that whole motivation side, like
That's not necessarily oversharing.
but
It's just like motivation.
It's motivation, but then there's figures out there that will like be 100% with you and be like, you can deal with this, you can figure it out.
That's not oversharing though.
I mean, because they're talking, no, but they talk about their life story. They talk about like what got them there, how they were like on one, and it's all like one of those videos where like you click on this link and you download my PDF or ebook, right? It's more of like them like on a live stream and talking about their struggles and how they overcame them. That way people could, and that's what I'm saying, it's different. They do it in a way.
I just wish men cried more.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
just kidding.
Well, there's men that do cry a lot. I mean, I don't know.
I've never seen a man. I mean, I'm not gonna say I've never. I've very rarely seen a man cry on the internet, and when I have, it's like the birth of a baby, which as you should. A woman walking down the aisle, as you should. Like, but never like on here like sharing their feelings, which I guess is like there's like the yin and the yang. Maybe like that's more of a balance because like if you were crying all the time, it probably wouldn't be good for me because I'd be crying all the time.
But that's what I'm trying to say is that's literally the best way to say it is the yin and the yang in this scenario at least is because if you're with someone who's always crying all the time,
me, if you're with me,
and then you're either a person who doesn't know how to deal with those situations, or if you have the same emotional responses that the other party has, it's gonna be a disaster, and it's just not. It wouldn't be healthy at all. So that's why they're saying is that there's the yin and the yang.
I'm a firm believer in that, like opposites attract. Me and Cesar are so different in the way that we process things.
So which is why I'm saying is that not to say this is a clear representation of all women, but if you look at not the statistics, but just biology, I firmly do remember or have read somewhere that women tend to have more not like emotional intelligence. What's the word? There's like you're more caring. There's I forget the word. There's like categories. Like if you put men and women in separate categories, there's like a caring value.
It's also probably evolved over time with the fact that we've normalized sharing our emotions a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a little bit different nowadays. I do think still like I think if I had to guess, men don't really overshare, not just because like, there's a yin and yang. I just think there's also a kind of fragile, like a lot of men have fragile masculinity. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I do think that, like, men see it as a sign of weakness still. And, like, I don't think it's a bad thing. We're entitled to share what we want to share. If you don't want to share that online, go ahead. But I also I think a man would get more hate if he shared that online than from other men. Because it's not seen as, like, the most masculine thing to do. I remember having a conversation in college when I was a part of the Hispanic Latino Student Union. We talked about, like, in like traditional Hispanic families, a lot of men are taught like, to not show their emotions and like to not cry and to not do that kind of stuff, and like how kind of bad that is to be saying, like just because you're a guy that you can't be sharing your emotions. And I think that's still kind of like very much alive today. It was like, hey, like we're men, we don't do this kind of thing.
Well, I think I mean I understand where that sentiment comes from and still comes from to this day. However, I do see that there are more communities of men who are coming together, like you said, like I was saying. That's what I'm saying is that they are oversharing. It's just you're not seeing it because you're either TikTok isn't showing you that stuff because it's sharing whatever you want to see. But if there's actually communities out there where men get together, they talk about their feelings, they talk about their relationships, their issues, and figuring out ways to deal with them. It's just that you're not seeing it. Like,
no, and I'm not. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it doesn't exist on the scale that it does with women.
I mean, I wouldn't know, but maybe you're right.
But I'm saying if it did exist, like I get pushed a lot of videos too that like we both have seen that. So like I know that like there are stuff that like we both see on the day to day. So I'm saying if it existed on a larger scale, we'd probably be more. I also think it'd be a huge news story, just saying. But, like, I think it'd be really, like, kind of at the forefront. I just don't think it is. And, like, that's okay, but I just think it's interesting in the way that, like, that's just kind of a thing. And I do know that there are some still men that, like, exist out there who would see a man sharing, like, their feelings like that or sharing, like, what men don't typically share and be like, man, like, that little, like, they'd be like that reaction. Like, no one, like... We all, at the end of the day, I don't think any of us like judgment. We try to, like, your mom always tells me, like, pretend like your skin is oil and let everything slip off of you. But it's hard. It's hard and, like, people are cruel. So I just thought it was interesting because, like, it's just weird. You don't really see it. And, like, maybe I don't want to see men cry all the time, but, like, it's nice to, like, know men have feelings.
They do. I mean, we all do. Everyone has feelings. No,
I mean, I know you have
I mean,
feelings,
but that's
like,
what I'm trying to say is that literally, even your brother, for example,
well,
who,
I've seen my brother cry.
but
Like,
that's what I'm saying is that we all have feelings and we have our own ways of showing them. And sometimes, like I said, there's these amazing communities online that like people join, whether it's like a forum or newsletters and stuff like that, where you gather and talk about necessarily how to deal with it, like how to get better. Sometimes it's just like doing physical activities with each other, like playing sports. Like that's probably one of the reasons why there's. I mean, not to say the sports.
it's
are
funny
reason,
that
but
we're talking about
yeah.
this though, because I did have a conversation with one of my best friends. I mean, I'm Spencer. I was talking to Spencer and I was like, what? I don't know what we were talking about, but we were talking about how he was telling me something, and we're pretty good friends, so we share a lot with each other. And I was like, he was telling me about an issue he had, and I was like, as he was describing it, I was like, it's crazy that you mentioned this, because I didn't think like men ever like talk to each other about how they feel, or like when they're upset. I was like, I was under the impression that guys just
No, they
kind of
do.
like
I'm
fuck
telling you,
around and like
they do.
don't really have like, not that
Yeah.
they don't have feelings, but that like they don't like talk about, like, for instance, if I'm bothered by something like friend of mine did, I'm gonna let them know, or like I'm gonna like talk to them about it and like how I was hurt. But I also, like, in my mind, I never envisioned that men did that. So when like I was having this conversation with Spencer, I was like, what? Oh, that's so crazy. I mean, obviously I know that they have emotions, but I think I've always just been so like thinking that they just don't share them with other people, or like other, like their friends, or like the relationships that men have with other men aren't like similar to like the relationship, like for instance I have with like Alyssa's like one of my best friends. We like overshare on the daily with each other, and the idea of you doing that with like another man
it's
like I've never seen it, so it's just like,
not in that
do you
way.
guys share, like, what do you share with your guy
Not in
friends?
that. I mean, not in that way, but like definitely, like I would tell you right now, 100% is like one of the most emotional things that men do probably share with each other, especially those that they trust. Is like when they get their heart broken. That's probably.
See, that's what I thought though, that men wouldn't share. No, with
they
each
do,
other.
man. I remember growing up and like whether it was like friends of friends talking about and like like, man, it's gonna be all right, that's when like they especially if it's someone you trust, like not just a random person on the street you're not gonna talk to. Oh, I just got my heart broken. No, it's like I mean, I know for a fact I've gotten my heart broken before, but it's just like it's a tragic feeling. And that's what I'm saying is that we do have feelings and we do care. We show it in a different way. And for some of us, showing our feelings is like, not to say we bottle them away. It's like going out and going on a run or getting fit or whatever it is.
It's
right?
just different outlets.
It's just different outlets, going out and, getting dirty, like going out and rolling in the mud. I don't know. Like
Caesar's heart's broken. I'm going to go.
No, like,
I feel like, but that's what's just so funny to me. It's just the different, like.
It's different. And that's what I'm saying is you can't that's why men and women, we're different people. We're biologically, science will tell you we're biologically different. We have different chemicals that are running through us.
I think there's a lot more factors that come of it than with biology. Like, I'll go back to, I think it has everything to do too with like, our parents, how we grew up, whether you had a family that talked about that. Like, there are some people that I knew that grew up where they shared everything with like their parents, how they felt, and so that affects it obviously in like your environment. So I think that's kind of a thing, but
like I said, background, environment, all of that definitely affects it.
It's just crazy. Like, when I think about social media too, I don't think we ever intended it to be used in the way that we use it. I think about as someone who, I think I'm a little business baddie. I know a lot about a lot of things, I would say, and I think about how when you create a product, you obviously have like an intended use for it. You envision how someone's gonna use it. But I would say, I feel like I heard this before, like that's the wrong way to do it, because the consumer will tell you how they want to use it. They will tell you like whether you intend it for that use, like they'll tell you the way they want to use it, and then you just evolve the product for how the consumer wants to use it. And I think that's what we've done with social media, is that we've started using it in a way, like for one, we use it to like make money, like we use it to like share our feelings, to build community. There's so many different uses, and I don't think when, for instance, Facebook became a thing, whatever his name, whoever, Mark Zuckerberg was like, this is what will happen. You can't forecast what has happened with social media. Like, you could have, like, as you saw it grow, you probably could have made some predictions, but from the beginning, I don't think anyone was thinking we'd be where we are now with social media and how we use it and how we continue to use it and how it continues to evolve. And I also, like, on that point, I saw I don't know if it was like a YouTube video but someone was saying that the, like, traditional influencer, and now it's like traditional's crazy, people no longer want that kind of influencers. They want influencers that have day jobs, that, like, work jobs like they do, because it's more relatable.
Using someone or having someone showcase a product that can relate to you, I think would be a little more powerful, and like whether it's selling it, right? Especially if it's something that you can relate to and actually use, especially if you have use for it. Like let's say,
What are you talking about?
like you're talking about the influencer, like like traditional influencers were influencers who a company would come to them and be like, hey, you have a following, share our product, whatever it is. But people want to see like the authentic, actual person who has, like you said, a day job.
Yeah.
Who would you actually use the product or service or whatever it is, and they would rather probably not to believe them, but they would have
Well,
more
it's not just that. It's like
authenticity.
they want to follow people like that. So it's not just about like brand deals and products.
Well, like Mike, yeah.
But it's more about like, I'm going to follow this person because they have a day job and I can relate to them more. Not just like the products that they use and like brand deals. I was talking about in the perspective of like,
okay.
People want to now like build people up that have like a life that's more. It used to be that you follow these people that grew online and they no longer work like for whatever they were doing before. They now just do this, and they now just do YouTube, and they have all these extravagant things, and that was one thing for a period of time. But now people are looking for, like, creators is like now kind of the new term, that live a similar lifestyle, that aren't like these extravagant things, because it is more relatable and is like, yeah, it's just more relatable.
Yeah,
like,
relatable. Yeah.
I can't relate to having a jet or
no, but that's what I'm trying to say
anything.
Is that just not the ordinary person, because not everyone is extraordinary in their own way, but I
think ordinary and extraordinary actually mean the same thing.
Ordinary and extraordinary mean the same thing?
I'm almost entirely sure.
I don't think so.
Let's see.
You should look it up. But yeah, I mean, while she looks that up, yeah, I mean, I feel like just people grow attachment to those who are similar to them in pretty much in any aspect of human life and decision making that you do.
Okay, I lied. It's not. For some reason, I thought it was.
No, I mean, it just means like extraordinary, right? I don't know why. But anyways,
that used to be the name of my blog.
I know.
Because I am extraordinary.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's just, that's why I totally understand that. Like, it's moving. I think at one point before TikTok was even a thing, they were calling them micro influencers, people that just had a smaller following and did other things that.
Well, because they were called micro influencers because they had smaller following, but a more close knit community.
Yeah.
There was higher engagement than a community. Like, you might have someone who has 1 million followers,
but
lower engagement. Yeah. But like, maybe you have 10,000 followers and every one of your followers is engaging on your post.
Yeah.
That's like way more valuable than the million. Like,
yeah.
So there is like a value in that too. But yeah, it's just interesting the way that everything has evolved.
Yeah,
what it is, and like the way that we use it to kind of share our lives online. And I think there is a beautiful thing about it. Like, I love seeing what other people are doing, as like weird as that sounds. I like to see. I think sometimes it can be motivational. Sometimes it can really just show a different perspective that you might have not had otherwise. And like, you wouldn't have that same experience like 30 years ago. No,
you wouldn't. Definitely not 30 years ago. That was like the dawn of the internet 30 years ago. But
the dawn of the internet.
Yeah, no, it was. No, what's funny though, just to bring it back to this point that you had made earlier, is that, the oversharing has been a thing since the beginning of the internet. The first thing I believe that anyone decided to do when the internet became a thing was create forums and communities. So there was like car forums and the randomest stuff. So like, there was always an outlet in the beginning of like, hey, join this, go to this website, you can talk about X, Y, or Z or whatever it was. And it was always, or find the information. It was always about oversharing.
on this topic too, I think that there's a different like perspective we haven't looked into at like this current moment, and it's like the downsides and the negatives.
But that's what I'm saying is that's what I had mentioned earlier is that it isn't necessarily evil, but there is.
Well, I wasn't gonna say in that way. I was gonna say in like the I shared something and it got me fired.
No, that's what I'm saying is that there are people that have done that and have continued to be laid off because of something they said.
Well, I'm talking about like I saw like, you know, companies don't necessarily, even if it has nothing to do with like the company you work for, they don't like what your social media presence. You know, there are companies who are like
they even hire based on what you're posting. And
yeah,
stuff like
and it's like
if you fit their
like there's now this like thing where if you share too much online and someone sees it and they don't necessarily like it, it's like it could make you like less value for a job. And like it's kind of sad because like we should encourage people to like be themselves and be authentic online and to like share things, but like it shouldn't like make us any, you know, less qualified for something. Like, you know,
are you saying that you'd rather hire on merit than on what someone shows then? Because I think that's a pretty honest thing to say is that if someone shows that they can do the job, but they may have some opinion on something that they shouldn't be.
Well, it's not even about opinions at this time, but like it's like, oh, like
it's on merit, you know.
No, well, it always should be on merit. But what I'm saying is like for instance, I might post like I'm gonna take it in like a really extreme perspective. Say you have like a woman like me, and I post like stuff that's like I want to say not kid friendly, but like maybe I'm like I very much love my body, and like, you know, maybe I post things online that aren't necessarily like seen by society as like appropriate. And like, but that doesn't take away your qualifications or like, you know, like who you are as a person. I think even like a stupid little TikTok, like I remember working at Target, nickel in the jar. I made a video of me and my coworker dancing in like our little team lead office, and I showed it to like one of my managers at the time, and she was like, yeah, make sure you have like your name badge off and like you make it known that you're not on the clock, because like, you know, you could get in trouble for it. And I was like, why? Like, why should I be so concerned like about posting something? Or like, even like I have some strong thoughts about my time at Target, and I have shared some of them on this podcast. But there have also been some things that I really wanted to shed light on, but was scared that it would make me look bad to future employers.
Yeah, I
mean, it's like I should be able to share that kind of stuff.
I mean, I think nowadays people are doing it a lot more. Especially, I mean,
but it hurts people too when you do that, and that's what I'm saying. Is like,
or they
people
do it anonymously or something like that.
People do it. They'll be like, I just want to say X, Y, and Z, and it like may not have effect at the time, but I'm always thinking about like how is this going to affect my future. And so it does make you feel like you can't be truly transparent and honest online because of who might see it and how it might be perceived, you know.
I mean, it's those are the unintended consequences of oversharing. Yeah, that pretty much boats into any category you can think of online, whether it's that job related or it's some other very nuanced thing that like 50% of the US doesn't agree with, and you know there's a snowball effect to all of it. But yeah, and that's where, man, I mean, it would be really cool for us to be able to live in a society where we can just share whatever it was.
I just think there's always going to be people that don't agree with you.
Yeah,
it's just unfortunate that there are such unintended consequences of like, I saw a girl recently, I mean, probably was like a month ago or so, maybe 2 months ago, where she made a TikTok, and it was, I don't even know what it was. I never saw the original TikTok, but she got fired for it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing one about Apple, where this Apple employee, she shared her day in the life as an Apple employee, and then she got fired for it. But apparently she never said where she was. But you know, like they knew that she worked there, and then she got fired for it.
Which is crazy because it's like that's just shedding. Like people love to see like the day in life at like these big companies because people are obviously interested in working at them. Like, you know, I see so many day in life at Google, day in life at Amazon, like those kind of things, and it's so shitty that like companies like will do that, and like they can do that because of like
policies,
or maybe you signed something that you didn't
I think
necessarily
every
like
company
know.
nowadays has like a social media policy.
It's so crazy too, and it's like I just want to be able to post what I want to post, and like I get it if like I'm saying here like I'm
disparaging.
disparaging the
It's different.
company I currently work for, but like at the same time we should essentially be able to.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a way to, not to say disparage some company that you currently work for, but it's more of like there's a way to do it without, you becoming without, I don't know. I think there's a way to do that the right way. I don't know. I feel like there's a way to put your opinion on anything the right way. But even then, there's going to be people that don't agree with you and may.
Well, there's always going to be people that don't agree with you. I just don't like. It's just crazy. I'm always cognizant, or try to be cognizant of like what I post, because I know that someone someday, like I might cross paths with, might see it, and like, but at the same time I want to be like very authentic and be like real, so, and not care.
Yeah.
What
No, it's because it's funny because you mentioned like, because somebody someday might see it, and it's like people on Twitter like in 2012 were saying some stuff that's gotten them fired nowadays. It's like,
well, yeah,
they
it's like
dig through their old tweets.
But
you said this on this
But
day.
the thing is, if you think about the start of the internet, I don't think anyone ever thought about that. Like at that moment, I'm posting like, if you look at all of my tweets from like 10, it was probably all about Cody Simpson for one, because I was obsessed. But like, I never thought about like, man, this is gonna exist on the internet forever. Somehow, some way, someone probably has this of me saying, I love Cody Simpson, or like me being obsessive fangirl. And like, you don't think about it at the time. And I think that's the same thing that's happening now with people like posting things. Like, we don't think sometimes because it's just so innocent. What we're trying to do is so innocent. I would say for the most part, maybe not all the time. And like, sometimes we can't think about the consequence of our actions because we don't think that there should be. So yeah, it's just freaking crazy to see where it's gone and where we're at. Obviously, if oversharing on the internet wasn't a thing, we probably wouldn't have this podcast,
Yeah, no, we wouldn't have the platform
Cesar,
to post it on and all that. So
but it's great. There's so many great things that have come about it. I also feel like, for instance, this podcast is an outlet for me,
for both of us to overshare in a sense. So
I mean, I just want to put out there something that can help someone, or something that someone else can relate to, and like maybe they feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
I feel I've like had these same conversations like with their significant other, or like with someone in their life, and it's just nice to be able to do so. Like I love this so much. Like, I don't know how to say it. I just really do like it. So I'm just glad that we're able to kind of put what we've experienced out there, because I think that's a big thing too. Our experiences shape the narrative of our lives, and maybe the narrative of some other people's lives. And Cesar, like we say this all the time, we're not experts in probably any of this. There's a couple of things that we're experts in.
Yeah, I would say there is, but not like
all things that we talk about. Yeah. And I think it's always good to open up the door for conversation, to kind of see different perspectives, to learn. I know, like, I posted things from this podcast on Instagram, and there were people that didn't agree with me, and that's fine, because like we're all different people. You don't gotta agree with me, but I think it is enlightening to see, like, also people's, like, I posted something this week. I think it was this week, where I talked about how Christmas, because last week we talked about seasonal depression and like the holidays, and how it's sometimes a very sad time of year. And someone that was on this podcast, Stephanie from Roja Tech, love that girl, posted that she had similar experience, and I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. So it's so nice to share like some of the same feelings. So please, if you ever have like some of the same feelings that we share in an episode or something similar, share with me, because I just love to know that there's other people out there like me. I feel like sometimes like I'm crazy, or like, but I'm the only one. But yeah, I think that today has been a great episode. And I mean, do you have any final thoughts, Cesar?
I think, again, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, is that oversharing for the most part isn't bad. There's a lot of good that comes through voicing what you want to put out there. You know, sometimes you have to use the internet as an outlet for how you feel, and that's completely okay. You're always going to get differing opinions, or whatever the case is. So don't be afraid to voice what you think is, right, and or how you feel, and be part of the oversharing. We're here oversharing right now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's true. It's so important. But we appreciate every single one who listens to our podcast. I think we're at 88 subscribers on YouTube now. So I'm just trying to get to 100 at this point. We've been at 88 for like a couple of weeks now. I'm like, come on, subscribers. But if you've made it this far into the episode, we're so happy you're here. If you like this episode, please like it. Please subscribe. If you're listening on... Can you not do that?
I like doing that.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or any other podcasting platform, please leave a review. Let us know how much you love the sound of our voices.
Yes.
Or maybe how much you hate them. I welcome all, honestly. It might make me cry, but hey, I need to get stronger anyway. So yeah, this has been Growing Together with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again next week.
See you guys later.